All right, it is currently 7:01, and I will call the meeting to order. Ms. Larson, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. We'll start with Diana Anton tonight. Danny, you're muted, actually.
Here.
Thank you. Debbie Braun,
Here. Here.
Mick Morrell. Mick? Are you there, Mick Morrell? He's busy.
I'm here. I don't know if your my
Yeah,
iPad's all messed up. I'm switching over, so
no problem. Matt Rogers
Here.
and Matthew Mitchell.
Here.
Great.
Thank you. With all commissioners present, and I will move on to item 3 on our agenda. In light of the governor's COVID-19 disaster proclamation, in consultation with the people that regularly attend this meeting, I've decided it's impractical or imprudent to meet in person, and we will meet by Zoom. Moving on to item 4 of the agenda, are there any citizen comments? All right, hearing none, we will move on to item 5 of the agenda, the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion regarding January 12th minutes? Mitchell moves to approve the January 12th, 2023 minutes. Is there a second?
Morrell seconds.
Seconds. Is there any discussion? Any commissioners have any issue with the minutes? All right, Julie, could we do a vote, please?
Anton,
Yes. Here.
Braun,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Mitchell.
Mitchell is yes.
Got it.
Okay. So motion passes unanimously. Minutes are approved. Moving on to the approval of the bills. Mr. Rosinski, could you walk us through those bills, please?
Certainly, some of the unusuals, auto wares, which is also known as bumper to bumper, was some supplies for the F-150. It was an oil switch and a filter and some funnels. Bella Consulting is equity. As we move further down, Josh Cavaliers was a replacement check. Kathleen Early is a refund. Rachel Jacome is a refund. Amara Terrens is a refund. Kaplan Saunders Valente is our old law firm. That's the last check to them. They've gone basically out of business. And a few bills I'll explain a little further. Julie Lewis, minute taker for Ready Committee. LRS is our new garbage pickup service. We'll get used to that. Meltzer, Pertel, and Steele is the new law firm of which Charles is a partner or a member. Diana Morrow, refund. Nice Rink is our liner that is out there now. Somehow they didn't bill us, so we're just paying for it now. Ridgeville Band of Evanston's our annual donation, $400. Russo Power Equipment, we bought tires for one of the drive-behind lawnmowers. Natalie Salee is conference parking reimbursement. Serin is our brochure, which includes postage, printing, and layout. Randy Singer, refund. Sunrise Tree, tree maintenance renewal. We are in the process of saving the ash tree at Reba Park, which is the largest tree in Ridgeville Park District, right at the basketball courts. So every 2 years we sign up for an inoculation. It has ash borer disease, but it looks healthy and doing very well right now. And then Nancy Young is another refund.
Thank you, Brian. Do any commissioners have any comments or questions for Mr. Rosinski? Hearing none, is there a motion regarding the February 2023 bills?
Morel moves to approve the bills from February 9th, 2023 in the amount of $31,832.27.
Mitchell seconds. Any further discussion? Julie, could you call the vote, please?
Anton,
Agree.
Braun,
Yes.
Morel,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
and Mitchell.
Yes. Right. Motion carries. We are moving on to the approval of petty cash. Brian, could you walk us through those?
Certainly, Air Delights, those are our soap dispensers throughout the building, so we had to buy additional keys. Amazon.com was sign holders. Apple Incorporated, iPad memory. Bengio's was lunch for Marcos Cruz, who has been working his fanny off. We'll talk a little more about that later. E-file tax forms, 1099s for Treasurer Gibbs to do his business. Home Depot, more tools, which I think we're basically done. Illinois Association of Park Districts was a pre-conference workshop. MailChimp, emails over 2,000. National Recreation and Park Associations with study guides for Natalie to finish some credits. Notary Public Association is updated notary stamps. Sam's Club Winter Camp stamps. Margaret Schwalbach is a refund times 2 children, an imaginary game. Typically, we would put it in the bills, but she had some financial situations that needed for her to get her money back ASAP. So we went through Mr. Treasurer Gibbs and we decided to do them petty cash instead of bills. Squarespace webpage annual fee. United States Post Office, there's 2. One is for real stamps and the other is for the postage machine in the office. We bought the real stamps while the postage machine in the office was being renewed or updated with money in the machine, so or credit in the machine. And then Wufoo Infinity Box is annual subscription for online registrations, very important for Original Park District. That's it.
Right. Does any commissioner have a question or comment for Mr. Rosinski?
No.
All right. Is there a motion regarding the petty cash?
Morel moves to approve the petty cash dated February 9th, 2023 in the amount of $3,323.08.
Anton seconds.
Thank you. And do any commissioners have any further discussion regarding the petty cash? Julie, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Anton,
Yes.
Braun,
Yes.
Morel,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
and Mitchell.
Yes. Motion carries. And Brian, we are back to you with your monthly report.
Certainly, February 5th, February 15th, 2023 is a deadline to apply for the director position here at Ridgeville Park District. As you know, IAPD is receiving those applications and will forward all of them and their recommendations after the 15th. The board should be prepared to meet and discuss those applications and begin to set their own interviews. It is still our goal to name that person as a new director and have them start around April 1st. And you all know I'll be working through May 31st. On the topic of jobs, we lost our maintenance level 1 employee, Luis Rodriguez. He decided to move to Arizona rather suddenly. We have posted that position, are currently in second interviews with several candidates. Our hope is to finalize that process within the next week, get that position filled by March 1st. In the meantime, Marcos Cruz, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, has been doing an outstanding job working by himself. We had snow, we have ice rink, we have building to be cleaned, we have all sorts of things going on, and he's really gone beyond the call of duty. The ice rink reopened February 2nd. We hope to keep it open as long as possible. That is history as of today. Lots of rain. We'll have one more cold day before about a week of the 40s. So it's too late in February. The days are too long, so the rink is closed. As I reported last month, we planned on purchasing 2 AEDs, a Gaga pit, exit doors, and tools. All of that's in the process. We should have that completed soon. Also, it's not on my report, but the F-250 is out to bid. Bids are due back February 23rd and will be discussed in the March meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Brian. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments for Mr. Rosinski? All right, thank you once again, Brian.
Thank you.
Moving on to Mr. Gibbs.
Hello, everyone. You've got my written report and the accompanying financials. I'll give a brief verbal summary quickly. As far as the budget performance, expenditures are tracking a bit below the expectations, which is good generally, particularly in the areas of repairs and capital projects across the general, recreation, and capital project funds. After months of operating with one foot on the brakes to conserve cash because of the delay in tax revenues, we've only got 4 months of fiscal year remaining to accomplish some very big project goals. So it's time to press the accelerator so that we complete the year conforming to the annual appropriation plan that was passed in September. With regard to revenues, things look good. One cloud on the horizon is that receipt of late winter tax revenues might drift into early spring to ease the payment burden on property owners in the district. That was decided at the Cook County level. The balance sheet is recovered from the depletion of cash assets during the tax revenue delays. And as for the cash funds, we've currently got too much money on deposit at Chase. I will address that in February, getting the money moved back into investment accounts. On the outstandings, things look mostly good, with a few items being investigated by the office staff. I'm asking that the commissioners propose and approve a motion to correct a couple of outstanding problems that we've been carrying open for several months. Next month, I'll have another proposal for a couple other outstandings that have been researched and need to be resolved, and another one to address some incomplete budgeting matters. So that's my report. I'm open to any comments or suggestions, and I would ask that you propose and approve the motion as laid out in my report.
Thank you, Jerry. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments for Mr. Gibbs? Would anybody care to move forward his proposed motion? I'll go ahead and do that. Mitchell moves that the payment of $68.85 to NICOR approved on the general bills report of August 11th, 2022 be instead approved for $68.65 to clear the outstanding unapproved general bank account entry for that amount. Is there a second?
Morel seconds. Morel seconds.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding that motion? Ms. Larson, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Anton,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Morel,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
and Mitchell. Mitchell?
Mitchell's a yes. Thank you. All right, motion carries. Nothing further from Mr. Gibbs. We are moving on to Ms. Salee.
Thanks. Hi. Okay. Our spring summer brochure is out. Just a couple quick highlights from the brochure. We're going to be partnering with Evanston Soccer School in April and May to bring soccer to youth ages 4 through 9. My report says 8, but it's 9, to Caymanes Park. Our summer camp registration is going to be happening in 2 parts this season. On February 20th, Ridgeville residents only can register if they meet one of two special criteria. Either they have a letter from the city of Evanston for the free reduced lunch program, or all primary caregivers work outside the home. We are bringing back the basketball tournament this summer, and we will also be offering a mini basketball camp in August, led by one of our outstanding camp counselors, Quintrell. And our mini partner camps will be offered this season by Incrediflix, Playwell Technology, Let's Craft It, and The Imaginary Game. MISEP, the city of Evanston offered the Mayor's Youth Summer Employment Program again this year at the Robert Crown Center. I attended along with Laura Downey, who's running our Youth Grow team this season. We met some excellent candidates, and I'm in the hiring process currently. IAPD, IPRA Soaring to New Heights Conference. I attended the conference again this year, January 26th through 28th. I listed here the sessions that I attended. They're available in my report in the digital packet if anybody wants to see that. I learned quite a bit. I made some good connections. I also attended some networking events, including a social with iParks. I also started the application process to take my Certified Parks and Recreation Professional CPRP exam later this year, which means that these workshops will count toward my continued education units for future conferences. If you have any specific questions about the sessions I attended or the CPRP exam, I would be happy to talk to you about it. Our garden programs, the garden to table program is nearly sold out. We've got just a couple spots left. It's going to be led by Gwen Godwin this year. It begins in March. We also we're adding 2 additional beds to the Ridgeville Garden, and those 2 beds will be rented. And they'll be rented by alumni gardeners from the Garden to Table program. So I think it's going to be a great fit. The Elks Park Garden rentals begin in March as well. I'm right now coordinating with the existing gardeners to assess who's returning and how many new microplots I'll be able to offer to our wait list. As of this report, I knew of at least 4 microplots that would be offered to folks. I know of at least 8 now, and probably at least 4 more. So we'll be able to make a nice little dent in our wait list. And I've communicated with everybody on our wait list as well. Some folks, you know, since they've been on the list, they've moved out of town or they're doing other things. So I'm getting a updated, comprehensive list of who's still wanting space. New partnerships to look out for. I had mentioned Evanston Soccer School is a new partnership with us. The Repair Cafe is hoping to set up shop at the field house or the community house a couple times a month to offer free services to the community. This is a super cool program. They're currently running some workshops out of the Robert Crown Center right now, but it's just a group of volunteers who fix stuff. And people from the community can come for free with a clock or a watch or a pair of pants they need hemmed. And these volunteers will fix their item for them and teach them how to fix it themselves. If they want to learn, maybe they don't, that's fine too, but it's a really cool thing. So we're working on getting that all settled. I'm also working with an individual who would like to bring some free drum circles to the park. He also wants to offer some sound meditations and taiko classes, which I may have pronounced incorrectly. And if so, I apologize. And I will update you all on these partnerships as I continue to develop. And that's it.
Thank you, Natalie. And thank you for the brochures. They look great.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions from Ms. Salee?
Hi, Natalie. Second, Matt, on the brochures, they came out great. This Repair Cafe sounds cool. I was just thinking that it sounds like something that might possibly fit in on Wednesdays with the concerts, just because the amount of people there, and that, you know, it might just be a good time for them to do it. And obviously they can open up earlier if they wanted to do so, but probably be good for them because they'd get a lot of publicity there with as busy as they were. And a lot of people tend to come to those so they could bring their broken stuff with them and have it fixed while they're listening to the music.
We talked about that actually. We're looking at potentially putting them in. They need an indoor space because they need electricity. And the community house is set up and is being used by campers during that time. So we're talking about potentially using the Garage Art Studio as kind of an indoor pop-up spot for them to do the concerts, but I agree that would be cool.
Anything else for Natalie? All right, thank you, Natalie. Moving on to Ms. Harmon.
Hello there. I don't really have anything new in terms of meetings for you all because we haven't met with the trainings. But I did want to first just, thank Aisha so much for the trainings. Anyone who hasn't had a chance to watch them, and I've reminded the committee members too, I believe all of them have been posted now. Last time I checked, I know 2 of them were. I highly recommend watching them for anyone who has done other DEI trainings. This was specific to Ridgeville. So although some of the information is stuff that, we've covered before in other situations, hearing it specifically about Ridgeville, I think was really helpful, particularly this last session that addressed some of the ideas and attitudes that go along with noise complaints on basketball courts. I really encourage you all, if you didn't attend, if you haven't watched yet, to watch that one, because that one's going to be really pertinent when we go over the basketball recommendations. And Aisha, I was really, you did a really great job. I'm really grateful to have had you walk us through all that. Along those lines, Aisha also provided a status brief on the work that she has completed so far. And something to keep in mind is she is coming close to, the end of the contract, so to speak, in terms of hours and such. So I think that's something, I don't know exactly how that happens, but I think that needs to be, looked at and to see if we're, going to try to wrap up our work, or if we're going to add stuff on, what our plans are moving forward. In terms of Aisha's status report, and Aisha, I'm sorry, I should have asked you. I don't know if you want to go through this yourself, or if you want me to go through this.
I can just share some of the highlights there. So this just outlines sort of brief, just touch points on the work that's happened so far. My daughter says hello. A review of the climate assessment, goals that have been set so far for the work over the course of these past few months, the training that has happened, the audit of policies, as well as interviews that have occurred, and the development of templates for hopefully future use right now, and hopefully they'll stand and be able to be used in the future as well. So really prepping the committee to continue on the work in my absence. So we've covered quite a lot of ground so far. There's still a lot of ground to cover as well. So that's just an overview. And then there's also the outline of the training as well, for anyone who hasn't viewed it yet, to know sort of just a snapshot of what the training covered. And that's it.
JC, do you have anything else?
The only thing that I wanted to add is, we haven't been working with Aisha all that long, right? We started working together in November. I feel like the progress that the committee has made, I think, has been really strong. I think we've accomplished a lot. And I think we've also not only learned a lot as committee members, I've learned a lot as chair, but I also feel like these documents that Aisha is leaving behind is going to be, something that will be really easy for, the board and future committee members to follow. I'm really proud of the work that we've done so far. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. I asked Natalie today if we could put on our agenda for the next meeting, maybe an assessment if we need to increase our equity funding for this current year, which runs through June. And so that'll be on our agenda next month. Aisha, maybe I'll reach out to you and we can talk about next steps.
Okay.
And is there any other questions, comments on that? Natalie?
I have a quick question. This came up as we've been interviewing candidates for the maintenance position. What is the status on now that we have these recordings of the equity training? Are we hoping that incoming staff will watch them? Is that a part of what we should be letting new employees know? I know we talked about it I know we've talked about that before. I don't know if we've ever actually answered that question because we didn't have them in place yet. So I'm just wondering where you all stand on that.
That would be my recommendation.
I agree.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay.
Any other commissioners have opinions on that? Brian?
So the question is it new full-time employees or the central employees? And if the answer is yes, that's great. Are we paying them to review it? If it's everybody, we don't have that kind of money in the budget, and that would have to be post July 1st. When I say everybody, some are counselors, all that kind of stuff. And if we're paying them to view it. And there's Charles.
Charlie?
Yeah, so if we're going to require people to view it, we're going to have to pay them.
And so at this point, we're talking about one full-time new maintenance employee. My opinion is that that person should be required to watch the training and should be paid for it. I hear your concern, Brian, that we don't have the budget to have all part-time staff paid to watch, but I think maybe that's a conversation we need to have and that the Ready committee should have.
The full-time staff, Marcos would still need to watch it. New person would have to watch it. Zhang would have to finish watching it. She was in part of the meeting. That's not a problem. If there's 30 part-time students or part-time staff and any new hiree is part-time, we have to budget for that. And that's significant dollars. 30 people times 6 hours times their wage, thousands. So it could be done. It just needs to be discussed and are we doing it or are we not doing it?
I think I envision it in our conversations that it would be like permanent staff. So maintenance crew, administrative staff, yes. And then I'm wondering if maybe we should talk about this at the Ready committee meeting, but maybe we include our equity charter in the paperwork that we send home with all of the staff. And like, for example, we send home the gift ordinance, we have our personnel policy, we have our sexual harassment policy. Maybe it's another item that we send them to read. And once they've read it, they can sign off on the same form saying that they received and read it so that they're aware of our equity charter. Maybe that's a solution rather than expecting them to watch a 6 hours of training.
I like that, Natalie. I'd be open to having a shortened training, as part of the part-time counselor training. If we could have an hour of specific to their work and targeted training, perhaps.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, we'd kind of have to think through how to do it, but fitting it into I mean, I know it's already jam-packed and it's a long day. The
orientation.
Because I think part of what's really coming to mind is I want to make sure that like the summer staff and the, summer youth in the parks at the very least has watched that 3rd episode. So that whoever is interacting with the people playing basketball on the courts is doing so in a way that we want to reflect Ridgeville.
So maybe we'll put that on the ready agenda, JC, and we can talk about it next week.
Yeah, I got
Make
it.
a recommendation. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
you're welcome. Is there any other questions before I go?
Also, just from your report, JC, I see the schedule for updating the ordinances is coming up also at the next Ready Committee meeting. Can you
Yes,
just
that's correct.
give us a timeline on that?
So right now, as it stands, our next meeting is next Thursday, February 16th. The idea is that we will all bring our rewrites to that meeting. From then, you and I would meet so we can talk about the rewrites that we recommend. Once you feel like they're good, then they can go to Charles. Once Charles approves them, then we'll bring them back to the board. I'm hoping it won't take super long. There's nothing, really horribly egregious. I just really think it's a matter of making sure that the park district is legally covered while also reflecting, these equity pieces. And then just as a reminder, the pieces that we're working on now are the ones that were flagged by Dr. Effiam. But Aisha and I have come across some other things in the ordinance that we may want to, take a look at in the future, including like the whole rewriting of the whole thing and all that moving forward. But that's kind of separate from this initial rewrite.
I'd be open to looking at the, what you have now before that meeting and potentially making suggestions. But you guys tell me how you want to do it.
If it's okay, I can email you the list. I think it's in the board packet because it's in the report. The list.
I see the list. I have the list.
Yes. So we don't have any updates yet. We'll gather the updates at the next meeting, next
Okay.
Thursday.
Charles, I don't think you should expect anything before that meeting.
Right. It's whatever you guys want to do. If there's something available before, I would be happy to look at it. If there's not, that's okay. I don't know how much time you're allocating to this at the meeting. Just let me know what you want me to do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. JC, do you have anything further?
No, I think that's everything.
Okay. Aisha, do you have anything else to add?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the trainings. I was able to watch that 3rd session and I've done a lot of equity trainings and the work with you has been my favorite.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. All right, moving on. Sorry, I gotta go back to the top of my agenda. Old business. We are discussing the all-inclusive nature-based playground. Natalie's done a lot of work on this since our last meeting. And so Natalie, I'll hand this over to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I included a copy of the RFP in this report just as a refresher. And we had talked about this at the last meeting, but since then, and since posting it, at the conference, I spoke with quite a few playground companies. These are companies like Park Creation, New Toys, that build like the play circuits that you see in our parks currently. I talked to them about the RFP. I asked if they did any kind of natural playgrounds. And basically what they talked to me about was the material that they're using currently that's being used to replicate what would look like a natural playground, but the longevity of the material is like 30 years plus versus like 12 to 15 for lumber. And I talk about that a little bit more further down in my report. So that was my big takeaway. I also had I did a Zoom meeting with Bienenstock, which is a natural playground company who takes lumber and boulders and different things. They are designers. They will design a playground to fit your space. They will build it, they will ship it, and they will install it if you want them to. But that, as you can imagine, is a very expensive price tag. But I got to talk to a woman from Bienenstock. She answered a lot of really good questions, or she gave me a lot of really great answers to my questions. And it made me come up with more questions that I wanted to talk to the board about. So first of all, I guess something that came up in the conversations about material is, I guess, what is our, and then just, I'm sorry to rewind quickly. We currently have $15,000 in this budget for nature-based play. So my first question that came up is what is the board's priority regarding materials? Is it longevity of material, or is it the actual natural material? If we're going to go the natural material route, we're really talking about lumber, which requires like biannual treatments. It's not such a big deal. The upkeep is not terrible, but it does require some upkeep if you really want it to last. The material that I heard a lot about from the other playground companies is called GFRC. It's a glass fiber reinforced concrete. They use this to make items that look like boulders. They can make it look like tree logs. They can really replicate a lot of what you're seeing on the natural playgrounds, but again, with this material that has a longer lifespan. It's also, from what I understand, pretty easy to clean if it's graffitied. So that's one of my questions. Another one that came up is which process makes the most sense for us as Ridgeville Park District. What I've learned, you can find a natural playground company like Bienenstock to come out and look at your space, to design a park for you, or to design a playground for you, build it, ship it, and install it. You can do that, but like I said, it's very, very expensive. What I also learned from them and from the other playground companies is that you can kind of do different things with different folks. So the Bienenstock woman had actually recommended, her name is Natasha, had recommended you can buy pieces. You can buy like statement pieces, like some tunnel logs, some different climbing apparatuses, slides that go into your hillscape, and then actually hire a landscape architect to do the install. And then I talked to Brian, and he said that's what we've done in the past with our playground. So that makes sense. Another thing that came up in kind of relationship to this is how the board would prefer to select the play pieces. So Bienenstock had sent me some, if you want to go the natural material route, Bienenstock had sent me their catalogs. So I'd be happy to look through them. I included an example of some of the things that they've got. And these are just so this is on their website. You can click on each of these and find like hundreds of options within all of the music and play and furniture and sand and water and structures and whatnot. But I'd be happy to pick a few, bring them to the board to look at, so that the board can decide, and then we can do kind of an a la carte purchasing and then have them shipped in, hire a landscape architect to install them if you want. And then the final question that came up with this $15,000 budget, are we hoping that will be used entirely for equipment purchase, or do we want that to include the install as well? We could hire pieces up to $15,000 and then bid the install in the next fiscal year, if it's 30,000 or more, which I don't think it will be, or we could just budget for it in the next fiscal year. Or are we hoping to get it all done in this budget? So that's more or less, sorry, that was a lot. And there's more here in my report if you want to go through this, but that's essentially, those are the three questions that really were standing out to me: is material priorities, what process, how do we want to go about doing this, and then how do we want to spend that $15,000?
Do you want to have a conversation with commissioners and go down the list?
Sure. We can just start with material. I'm curious how the board feels about, is the aesthetic of the nature play the priority, and you can do that with a material that's going to have a longer lifespan, or is it the actual like lumber material that is the priority.
Is there a cost difference?
Yes and no. I think no. I think since we're not gonna, because we haven't budgeted the kind of money to like design a playground and go that route, I think the amount you're paying for what Natasha was calling like statement items is going to be the same on either end. Whether you go the lumber route or you go the GFRC. I think they're pretty comparable. And you can get multiple pieces. We could get multiple pieces from multiple parks if we wanted to do that, or focus on one space at a time. There's lots of options.
Okay. Any commissioners have strong opinions? Any opinions?
I would just say if it's a nature-based play area, it should be nature-based, is my inclination on that. So I would be much more inclined to go for natural materials as opposed to fabricated materials.
Okay. Any other?
Yeah, I agree with Matt Rogers. I like the natural materials.
Debbie Brown, do you have an opinion?
Yes, I think I agree with that also. If it's a nature-based playground, it should be nature-based.
Okay. I think Mick had to leave for work, but I agree with the consensus that I prefer the idea of actual natural materials.
Okay, great.
Something real
oh.
quick, Matt?
Yeah.
I know we just voted probably 5-0 or 4-0, but anybody who wants to see the glass fiber reinforced stuff, we have 2 or 3 pieces at Brummel Park in the last play circuit we put in. Also, you can do this in stages. I mean, do the first stage with the board input, second stage with committee, something of that nature, and 15,000 may cover this year. Who knows?
Also, Natalie, I heard you say that it's possible to have a mixture.
It is, yeah.
So I have a preference for natural materials. If there was some prefabricated materials involved, I wouldn't have an objection.
I think the language is a little confusing too. I think this conversation came up at all because we were talking about natural playgrounds and adding like natural material to the playgrounds. A lot of these playground companies call their GFRC pieces natural, nature-based playgrounds or nature-inspired playgrounds, because sometimes the table is made out of the GFRC and it looks like a boulder, but you're adding mud and water, and that's what makes it nature play. But I think what I'm hearing the board saying, and I think I agree that that's how this whole conversation began, is that we were really talking about having natural material even create those objects, right?
I think it's also important because particularly in urban environments, kids don't have exposure to many of these things. I mean, I grew up in the country, not in the country, but in a small town. And when my niece came to town, she wondered why Lincoln Park had a farm, because that just made no sense to her. But it's because in the city, kids aren't exposed to this stuff. Kids don't get to climb trees. We don't have trees for climbing, this sort of stuff. So I think the tactile experience of natural versus prefabricated is more so why I'm leaning in that direction.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay. Okay, great. So then in terms of process, I think I already have the answer to this question just based on the conversations and logistics, but I would be happy to pick, if the board's comfortable with that, I'd be happy to pick out some items from the catalog that I think might be cool in the parks and that are popular pieces based on my conversations with Natasha. I'm wondering if maybe we should do a walkthrough of the parks, if anybody's interested in that, to identify some locations where we think some of these pieces would be most impactful. Does that sound like a good idea?
Didn't we identify a spot? I'm thinking back when Martha was on the board and she kind of did the presentation. I think it was like one of her last meetings. And I thought we had identified a spot. So is that not the case?
I don't think that we made a decision on that. I know that we had talked about Leiter Park as an option. I think Elks Park was still being thrown in the air as well. So yes and no.
I mean,
I think-
I'm not saying that I just thought we had, and if we had decided something, I didn't know if we were looking specifically to use that space or if we were kind of starting fresh. That's the only question.
My recollection that we narrowed it down to 3 areas that would be suitable. One is Reba, one is Elks, and the third is Leiter.
And we got a couple mud tables in at Reba that are made out of natural, they're cedar, I believe. So we got those in last season. But yeah, I think that we had talked about some different spots and narrowed it down, but I don't know that we had like nailed one on the head.
The problem with Elks Park is we still have a potential garden a year from now or a year and a half from now, possibly going there. So it was number 2. Number 1 was Leiter on the west side. And when we do that, we would remove some bushes and things of that nature. Some bushes that have seen their better day. It's not like we're going to remove a healthy bush. So that was my recollection. Leiter was 1, Elks was 2, but there's a few problems with Elks.
I think with, I think if we're going this route of choosing statement pieces, like for example, if we wanted to do like a slide within the hill at Elks, like it doesn't have to be a giant ordeal. It doesn't have to be like multiple pieces of nature play. But I think it would be helpful for me while I'm trying to pick out some suggestions for the board, if maybe we could do a walkthrough and look at them again. If anyone's interested in that, I can coordinate that with you. So then we would purchase the pieces and then hire a landscape architect to do the installation. Okay, and then in terms of the budgeted money, the $15,000, are we hoping that covers just equipment, or are we hoping that that would cover equipment and installation? She said it takes about 10 to 12 weeks for it to ship, assuming we order through Stock.
My inclination would be to see if we could spend $15,000 on materials, and then in our next year's budget for installation.
I think it's also important to pick the site, because if it's a larger site, we might want more stuff to cover the area, to make it feel more. If it's a smaller site, you don't want to overcrowd it either. So I think that, not that this is answering your question, Natalie, but I think that's kind of a deferral until we sort of hone in on which location are we truly looking at, because getting, and I'm just making this up, 15 pieces and putting them in, 100 square feet versus 15 pieces in 400 square feet is a very different impact.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Maybe the answer to that question simply comes once we've decided on what pieces we're going to get and where we're putting them.
Yeah, I think that's it. And then, kind of making the decision from there.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Brian?
Just quickly, just a repeat is pick the site, then you can decide how many pieces. It's going to be a natural product, and then who installs. And then therefore you're going to come up with how much money we can spend, or did we spend it all? And then next year's budget would do the installation. So
something else to add quickly about Stock, if you purchase items from them, they send you extremely detailed installation instructions that include fall zones, all of the regulations, everything that you have to, that the landscape architect needs to be aware of to put it in. So we'll need to keep those things in mind too as we're picking items, and they're very, very helpful. Like their mission is really just to like get nature playgrounds into spaces for communities. So she has said whether we purchase through them or not, she's willing to help through the process. So that's great.
Great. So I'm hearing, Natalie, you'll perhaps send an invitation if folks are interested in walking the sites.
I will. I'll send you all an email and bug you tomorrow.
Okay. And then hopefully by the next meeting, we will have picked a site, which will maybe determine our path going forward.
Yeah, we can talk about it, and then that'll help me make some recommendations.
Great. And then so at the next meeting, Natalie will maybe have recommendations for pieces and a place.
Got it. Yep.
That would be great.
Cool.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Yeah.
Anything further on this topic? All right. We are moving on. There's no new business. And so next up is call of the commissioners. Julie, could you call our commissioners?
Sure. Diana Anton,
I don't have anything new.
Debbie Braun,
Nothing.
Morel, I think is still gone. Matt Rogers,
Nothing from me.
Matt Mitchell.
I once again wanted to thank Ms. Bell Robinson for her training. It was super spot on, really engaging. Encourage everybody to watch it. Also, thank you for letting us tape it and watch it after the fact.
I agree. Alicia, it was very informative, and I appreciate all the work that you put into that kind of presentation.
Thank you, Diana.
Mhm.
All right. Moving along, are there any citizen comments? All right. Mitchell moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Very efficient meeting. Appreciate you all.
Everybody have a great weekend.
You too.
Go Kansas City.
Adios.
Bye-bye.